Mr. Heng Chee.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank the President for her address to this House. In the part of her speech about forging a cohesive, caring and inclusive society, she said, and I quote, "Singaporeans want to live in a fair and just society, one based on meritocracy, but at the same time strives to leave no one behind. Thus, we are each prepared to do our best, but also to walk alongside fellow citizens who need help to keep up. In Singapore, people must always be able to get ahead through effort and excellence. We must open up more progression pathways and celebrate a broader range of successes." She went on to say, "We must tackle inequality vigorously. We need to provide the right additional support to those needing them in housing, education, skills training and employment so that meritocracy works well. Only then can everyone do well through hard work, talent and skills, regardless of their backgrounds. We need to pay special attention to the growing population of the elderly. We will continue to help older workers stay employed, earn fair wages and save more so that they can age with dignity and purpose." Sir, this resonated deeply with me. For many years now, I have been speaking up for the fair treatment and strengthening of employment and employability opportunities for older workers. I'm very happy that the President's speech emphasized this. And given that the speech bears the imprint of our 4G leadership, I believe that older Singaporean workers can now have the confidence, the comfort, and the expectation that this commitment will continue to be kept. The government and tripartite partners have worked closely over the years to enable workers to prolong their working years. The most obvious measure has been the extension of the retirement age, followed by the introduction of the re-employment age and the further raising of the re-employment age ceiling. As a result of all these efforts, workers in Singapore have legal backing not to have their services terminated by the companies on account of age alone before reaching the re-employment age ceiling, and that ceiling has been raised to 67 last July. Beyond that, there have been a range of measures aimed at strengthening the competitiveness and attractiveness of employing older workers. The Special Employment Credit and the Additional Special Employment Credit are two examples of wage subsidies given to employers to defray part of the cost of employing older workers. The additional training subsidies, intentionally given to support training undertaken by older workers, is aimed at spurring skills updating and upgrading on the part of our older workers. The WorkPro Job Redesign Grant incentivizes companies to render their work equipment and processes more age-friendly and even ageless. All these measures have helped improve the employment rate for older workers over the years, which for the cohort aged 55 to 59 has increased from 8% to 9.4% between the year 2007 to 2017, and in the age band from 60 to 64, in those same 10 years from 2007 to 2017, from 3.5% doubling to 7.3%, and then for the even older group, aged 65 to 69, between 2007 and 2017, from 1.7% to 4.1%. So these are very good, concrete results. But we have no time to rest. Companies and entire industries are facing disruption caused by rapidly advancing technologies and changing business models. I think we hear a lot of examples in the speeches of members today. In manufacturing, additive manufacturing technologies will have big impact on the traditional assembly line. Autonomous vehicle technology will mean that people can be conveyed in vehicles from point to point without the need for drivers. Robotics and machine learning will mean that that arena previously open only to humans, for example, arena like advisory services, can now be remodeled. The spread of e-commerce and online shopping is also certainly reshaping the retail scene, and will have deep and wide impact on the relevance of large physical store networks and distribution, and so on and so forth. While it is easy to recite these disruptive changes, it is much harder to figure what to do with them and how to deal with the impact. And for this very reason, we must do our best to gauge the impact on the use of labor and to plan ahead. In industries and occupations with a higher proportion of older workers, such planning, in my view, is even more critical. We need to develop specific, viable development as well as transition plans for these. We cannot just depend on individual initiative and general provisions and exaltations to deal with this challenge. I therefore suggest 3 ways to help focus government and tripartite efforts in this quest. The first one is, where do we focus on? I looked up the data from the Ministry of Manpower's Labour Force in Singapore Report 2017, and I came to the following understanding. First, the proportion of workers aged 50 and above in our resident workforce has increased from 25.7% in 2007 to 34.4% in 2017. So the aging trend is clear, it's persistent. 2, out of a resident workforce of 2.175 million, around 750,000 are workers at or above the age of 50. So as I mentioned just now, at 2017, it came to 34%. So that's 1 in 3 in the resident workforce above the age of 50. The 3 occupational categories in the resident workforce which have the largest number of workers aged 50 and above are, first, the category of cleaners, laborers, and related workers. There's 120,000 workers above the age of 50, resident workers. Service and sales workers, 110,000. Plant and machine operators and assemblers, 99,000 workers. So that's looking at it from occupational types. If we cut it a different way, we cut it by industry, and then look at which are the 4 industry with the largest number of workers aged 50 and above, then you will come to these conclusions. The first one, wholesale and retail trade, 140,000 workers above the age of 40, resident workforce. Transportation and storage, 93,000. Manufacturing, 85,000. Accommodation and food services, 66,000. So whichever way we look at it, either the 3 occupational groups or the 4 industry types, they will add up to about half of the older workers in our resident workforce. Now, how do we then use this data to help our older workers who are particularly numerous in these industries and occupations? I think a good starting point would be to assess which of these industries and occupation types are already facing the impact of changing technology and business models. Earlier, I mentioned the advent of autonomous vehicles, e-retailing, manufacturing 4.0, and so on. Question is, do we see a correspondence between these new technologies and business platforms and the occupations or the industries that I've just listed up as having more older workers? It's very clear that the industries that these workers are in are, like all the others, not exempt from experiencing disruption. They are also experiencing the disruption, and that the pace can only pick up with time. We must therefore initiate action to plan for the older workers in them so that while there is still time, those who can be trained, updated, and upgraded are given at least an equal opportunity to do so compared to younger workers. For those who face displacement, because the technology might be wiping out particular occupation groups in the foreseeable future, or for those who see better longer-term prospects in other occupations or industries, such as occupations that will become larger as a result of an aging population, for example, then they should be prioritized for help to convert. Otherwise, if we don't do these plans, we do not target and we do not help and explain and nudge and make happen, then the risk to both older workers and the system will snowball. And then when the current technology or the business model that they are in is discontinued, then you can see that there will be very quick and concentrated disgorging of workers from these occupation types or industries can happen, and that may then overwhelm the help mechanisms at that very point. So it's a question of digesting it away while we can in a very constructive way. Companies will also find that they cannot employ enough workers with relevant skills if they do not upgrade those that they have currently, regardless of their ages. But please do not neglect the older segment. And it is easier, safer, and smarter to plan and act earlier and progressively to digest away the problem while there is still time. And done correctly, the older workers could in fact enhance their relevance and value and strengthen their working terms and prospects. By tackling the challenge as early as possible, we minimize the number of older workers who will be displaced through irrelevance. In this way, we enable older workers to continue earning incomes. This will not only help them meet ongoing living expenses, but also strengthen their retirement adequacy. As we like to say in the labor movement, a job is the best welfare. Now that we have a better idea where to focus, the next question is what needs to be done. And in essence, I think we should do 3 E's. The first one is extend the working life expectancy runway. So retirement age, re-employment age ceiling, such items we have to revisit from time to time. 2, improve the workplace environment, the physical part, the processes, job designs, attitudes, make them more age universal, age neutral, ageless. 3rd, enable and energize our older workers through strengthening their capability and confidence. As we do so, we strike an increasingly better and more sustainable balance between older workers who have a real chance and choice to remain in work longer, while simultaneously ensuring that their work creates real value for their employers. What specifically can we do to put into effect these 3 E's? I urge action in 3 areas. First, make sure that the implementation of the industry transformation maps, or ITMs, include the uplifting of older workers' skills. Government agencies in charge of coordinating and spurring the progress of these plans must have accountability towards this outcome. Tripartite partners must support the agencies to track progress and to flag obstacles in the journey. The desired outcome will not happen by chance. Only constant vigilance, mutual accountability, and a relentless attention to detail can get us there. Second, step up work redesign for ageless workplaces. The MOM's Work Pro program is a very good program. And thus far, some 650 companies have made use of it to redesign their workplaces and processes for greater age universality, and some 10,000 older workers working for these companies have already benefited. 10,000 is an encouraging number, but nonetheless, it still represents a small fraction of the total number of companies, 650, and the proportion of older workers in Singapore, 750,000. So unless we believe that the vast majority of companies are already very ageless, which it cannot be, and not so in the thinking and the operating, or the way they operate based on our experience on the ground, then obviously what must be done is we must find ways to ramp up the outreach and the take-up so that the impact can reach and help many more older workers in time. Third, review the way forward for retirement and re-employment. I've spoken on this at this year's budget debate about the need for tripartite partners to come together to discuss the next steps for extending the work-life runway, given that we have reached the earlier stated goal of raising statutory re-employment age ceiling from 65 to 67. So I shall not repeat myself here. After we are clear about where to focus and what to do, then I will add a final ingredient, which is how do we nudge both management and older workers toward the desired mindsets and behavior. There is a story that goes like this. There were 5 birds sitting on a branch. There was a hunter nearby, and he took aim and he fired a shot at them. Boom. Now, all 5 birds heard the gunshot and knew that they should fly away for their own safety. Now, the question is, how many birds were left on the branch? And the answer is, it depends. Yes. And why it depends? Then this is because knowing is different from deciding. Deciding is different from doing. So knowing and deciding will not save us or give us the edge over the competition. It is in the prompt doing of the necessary that survival and success is to be found. And this message, I repeat, really is for both management and our workers, because it takes two hands to clap. We must thus rally societal pressure against those who persist with ageist behavior, because they are both an affront to fairness and an impediment to progress. At the same time, we must redouble tripartite efforts to nurture, recognize, and reward more companies with the right attitudes and practices toward older workers. We must also do our utmost to promote the adoption of the tripartite standard on age-friendly workplace practices, the human capital partnership, and other like-minded initiatives to value the initiative, determination, and achievement of companies and our older workers. And by naming the good and taming the rest, we can then say truthfully and with confidence and a good conscience that based on justice and equality, we will maximize our chances to achieve happiness, prosperity, and progress for our nation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I support the motion. Thank you.